Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Dina Calmetta here. And for today's show, normally I do a Bible prophecy update on Wednesdays, but instead I'm going to move that to tomorrow and feature a show I did with Susan Davis. So stay tuned for that. For today, we're going to get into these headlines because there is a lot happening. And I also want to add that I will be uploading a show to Rumble with additional headlines, as well as expanding on the headlines here. So if you haven't yet, subscribe over there. I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll also post this to my YouTube channel so you guys know where to find it. But with that said, let's get into these headlines because we have a lot to talk about today. Reported that Ukrainian intelligence has confirmed that China is supplying key materials and equipment to at least 20 Russian military production facilities, directly enabling Moscow's ongoing conflict with Ukraine. The revelation made by the chief of Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service underscores growing concerns about Beijing's role in circumventing Western sanctions and sustaining Russia's operation. While Ukraine has previously accused China of supporting Russia indirectly through trade, this marks one of the most detailed and explicit assessments of Chinese involvement in Russia's arms industry. Just the News is reporting that former White House chief strategist Chief Bannon on Monday suggested that Senator Lindsey Graham should face arrest if he did not cease his trips to Ukraine and his advocacy for the continued conflict. Bannon stated that the White House has to condemn this immediately and pull all support and tell Lindsey Graham to come home, or we are going to put you under arrest when you do come home. You're stirring it up. Bannon specifically took issue with Graham's direct talks with the Ukrainian government and accused him of effectively undermining President Trump by promising support through Congress for a continued fight. Graham has been a prominent supporter of Ukraine during the Russian invasion and is traditionally regarded as one of Senate's most hawkish members. He has made several trips to Ukraine and recently applauded Kyiv's strike on Russian targets in the Siberian Far East. China's government has accused Pete Hegseth of trying to sow division in the Asia-Pacific region over his speech at the Singapore Defense Conference, where he warned China was a potential imminent threat. On Saturday, he stated that China was credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific and was rehearsing for the real deal of invading Taiwan. He said there's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real and it could be imminent. On Sunday, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned his words, which it said were filled with provocations and intended to sow division. They went on to say that he deliberately ignored the call for peace and development by countries in the region and instead touted the Cold War mentality for a bloc confrontation, vilified China, and falsely called China a threat. The remarks were filled with provocations and intended to sow division. China deplores and firmly opposes them and has protested strongly to the U.S. Now, Express News is reporting that tensions are simmering in Asia as military maneuvers near the disputed island sparks fears of a looming conflict. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense confirmed it was tracking 6 of China's military aircraft, as well as 6 naval vessels and 2 official ships close to their borders on Sunday. Responding to the sighting, Taiwan sent aircraft, naval ships, and coastal-based missile systems to monitor the People's Liberation Army activity. It has since been confirmed none of the 6 aircraft had officially crossed the Taiwan Strait, but concerns of a conflict between the two nations have been rising since late 2020 when China were discovered increasing its use of gray zone tactics. This involves activities below the threshold of armed conflict designed to assert control without provoking an outright conflict. So China is still upping their game, playing around Taiwan. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev stated on Tuesday that Russia will inevitably respond to the recent Ukrainian attacks on its territory despite continuing diplomatic efforts to reach a peaceful settlement of the conflict. In a social media post, Medvedev addressed domestic calls for a more forceful military response, declaring that Russian retaliation was inevitable. Now, of course, he said a little bit more than that, which I cannot say here on YouTube, but it will be in the full report on Rumble. Now, here's a very interesting report coming out of Russia. It's being reported that apparently Ukraine would not have been able to remotely attack strategic Russian aircraft parked deep inside Russian territory without direct intelligence and satellite support from the United States, according to a former officer in the French military. He said that this is possible and conceivable only with the support of a powerful satellite communication system. Since the Ukrainians don't have this mastery, if they were able to act remotely, it's certainly thanks to the United States. He also suggested that Kyiv would not have been able to carry out the operation without the information from American intelligence. So it certainly looks like they're starting to point the finger at the United States, you guys. Not a good situation. In the meantime, Zelensky has claimed he has been invited to attend this year's NATO Leaders Summit in The Hague. Media reports earlier suggested that the U.S. is opposed to his potential participation due to the concerns he could be disruptive. But Zelensky made the announcement on Monday after attending sessions of a NATO event in Lithuania, where the Secretary General met with leaders from Eastern and Northern Europe. It goes on further to report that NATO's stance that Ukraine's path towards membership is irreversible is cited by Russia as one of the key factors behind the ongoing hostilities between the two nations. U.S. President Trump has taken a dismissive stance towards the Ukrainian leader, meaning NATO officials fear the event could be disrupted rather than cordial. In other news, NBC News is reporting that President Trump and his administration are pursuing crippling austerity measures across the country by plunging millions of dollars into the president's pet project. Now, of course, this is coming from NBC, but it is still an interesting article, so I'm just going to read part of it to you. They are reporting that the administration is reportedly giving hundreds of millions of dollars to a company that's expanding the government's ability to spy on its own citizens. The New York Times has a new report on the administration awarding contracts to the controversial tech company Palantir, which is apparently helping President Trump develop a database of Americans' private information, scrapped from various government agencies that could theoretically be used to track or persecute them. Now, the White House did not respond to the Times' request for comment, but Palantir declined to comment on its work with the Trump administration. It pointed to a company blog post that said that organizations that license its products define what can and cannot be done with their data. The Times report aligns with concerns about surveillance and the weaponization of federal data. So I guess the bottom line is this a true story? Is the Trump administration looking to spy on its citizens? Come on over to Rumble and I'll tell you what I think. In other news, President Trump has officially opened an investigation into whether Joe Biden was competent when he used an autopen to issue lame duck pardons to family members. Ed Martin, Trump's ultra MAGA pardon attorney, says that the Justice Department has been directed to investigate clemency granted by Biden in the waning days of his presidency, including the December pardon of his troubled son, Hunter. Martin's unprecedented probe was revealed in a Monday email to staffers that was obtained by Reuters. The attorney said the investigation involves whether Biden was competent and whether others were taking advantage of him through use of the autopen or other means. Hunter Biden, who was convicted last year of 3 felonies, and the former First Lady Jill Biden have been accused of wielding significant power over the president in his final days. The prodigal son was treated like a chief of staff despite being probably demonstrably unethical and prone to horrible decisions, according to CNN's Jake Tapper. Trump and his supporters have made a variety of claims that Biden's use of the autopen invalidated his actions because he was unaware of the orders that he was signing. However, it is not known whether Biden used an autopen for pardons. In March, Trump declared his predecessor's last-minute pardons void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. He also warned that members of the House committee investigating January 6 could now face prosecution. The email stated that Martin's investigation is focused on preemptive pardons that Biden issued to several members of his family and clemency that spared 37 federal inmates, converting their sentences to life in prison. Just before he relinquished the presidency to Trump on January 20th, Biden pardoned 5 members of his family, saying that he wanted to protect them from future politically motivated investigations. The pardons went to Biden's siblings, James Biden, Frank, Valerie Owens, as well as their spouses, John Owens and Sarah Biden. Biden on December 1st pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, who had pled guilty to his crimes. Hunter faced up to 25 years in prison for the offenses, although was expected to receive a much lighter punishment as his first offense. So very, very interesting news here. So all of those people that were pardoned, if it's found in this investigation that Biden did not really pardon them and somebody else did with his autopen, possibly could face punishment. And what is happening in Bible prophecy? The Watchers is reporting that over 1,500 people seek medical help as dust storms hit Sistan and Baluchistan, Iran. Apparently, a powerful dust storm swept through the area on June 1st, causing over 1,500 people to seek the medical attention and prompting the closure of government offices and major roads. Another dust storm caused fatal multi-vehicle crashes on US 395 near Connell, Washington. The dust storm with near zero visibility contributed to the two crashes on the expressway on May 31st, resulting in one person perishing and 5 injuries. Fox News is reporting that Florida could see dirty rain as large Saharan dust plume arrives in the southeast this week. A large wave of the Saharan dust making its way across the Atlantic basin is forecast to arrive in the United States later this week with hazy skies and dirty rain. The NOAA estimates that more than 180 million tons of dust leave the African continent every year, and the extremely dry air reduces thunderstorm activity in tropical cyclone formation, and the Saharan dust has taken over nearly the entire Atlantic basin. One of the larger waves of concentrated dust approached the Caribbean on Monday. By Thursday, they're saying this thick plume is forecast to enter the Gulf of America over the Florida Keys and cover much of the Sunshine State. Another round of dust will move in along the northern Gulf Coast by Friday and head into the southeast. Primary impacts will be a hazy sky and reduced visibility, and dust has also been known to reduce air quality. Again, I ask you, are we entering a new dust bowl, you guys? We're seeing this more and more. Not just here in the United States, but obviously across the world. In the meantime, 3 Indian soldiers lost their lives and 6 more went missing on Sikkim on June 1st after heavy rains caused devastating floods and landslides. It's also being reported that remnants of Cyclone Alvin brought heavy rainfall to the state of Mexico on May 31st, flooding streets. The storm caused significant traffic disruptions, property damage, and overwhelmed local drainage systems. In the meantime, Greece was hit with a powerful 6.2 earthquake. This happening in Spain. Spain recorded its hottest May day on May 30th as the national average temperature exceeded 75 Fahrenheit due to a hot air mass from North Africa. In Australia, they saw a bright green meteor that flashed over the skies on June 2nd. Silkar reported intense rainfall in northeast India on June 1st, which caused widespread flooding and landslides, resulting in at least 36 fatalities and the displacement of thousands. Over in Mustang Park, Texas, 2 were hospitalized as lightning struck 14 people. 5.8 earthquake shook a coastal town in Turkey on Tuesday, causing panic among residents. Dozens were reported injured after jumping from windows or balconies to get out of their homes. And what is happening in Idaho? More than a dozen earthquakes have rattled central Idaho since Sunday morning in an unusual flurry of activity. So those are your headlines for today. Please do leave your comments below this video. I'd love to hear from all of you. In addition, when you have some time, come and visit us on our social media pages as well as our website at www.cww7news.com. And if you'd like to give a gift to this channel and ministry, I'm going to go ahead and leave links for you guys below this video so that if the Holy Spirit leads you, you can do so. And I thank you in advance. So with all of that said, stay tuned for tomorrow for our show with Susan Davis. And thank you for watching, everybody. Until then, God bless and stay safe.